On today's episode of the McCann Dogs podcast,
it's coming up on Halloween. Scary things happen on Halloween.
Things that have faces,
Pumpkins,
graveyard scene, or
jack-o'-lanterns.
be aware that your dog might suddenly spook.
and now, Instructor Shannon.
Welcome back to the McCann Dogs podcast. We are back in the studio after a little break in the end of season 4, and we've now hit season 5.
Season 5.
Season 5. That's exciting.
Yes.
I am Instructor Shannon, for those of you who have never been here before, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Instructor Swanny.
Instructor Swanny's in the house. And we also have a third co-host today. Who's this? Oh, that was very good on cue there, Honda.
This is Honda. Honda is 14 years old, and he's got a lot of stories and a lot of advice.
He's going to have the best advice ever.
Yes. Now, he's deaf as well, so if he starts to run off, you might see me waving my hands to get him back. But he is very much deaf. He's 14. He's a little old man now,
But he's a cute little old man. But he's actually an Ewok. He's not a dog or a man. He's an Ewok. If you're watching us on the McCann Dogs podcast, you will see why I refer to him as an Ewok when you see his ears. And he is just the cutest little munchkin that there ever could be. But he's hanging out with us today in the podcast studio and keeping us entertained with his antics.
Right, yes. And this could be his first and last podcast, depending on his antics.
Depending on the advice he gives. Could be his first or last podcast.
He's just being a little bit silly right now.
He's cute.
He's
cute. It's all good. Alrighty. So today we thought it's coming up on Halloween and scary things happen on Halloween. So let's talk about Christmas. I was just seeing if you were paying attention. I thought it would be a good time to chat about some of the tactics we take surrounding Halloween to make sure that our dogs are safe both leading up to Halloween and as Halloween happens. And then, of course, after Halloween, when there's all this extra goodies and chocolate and stuff in the house that could cause danger to the dogs. So let's start with a little fun, actually. Do you dress your dogs up for Halloween?
Well, I do have costumes for them.
Okay.
And Honda likes to wear costumes. He thinks it's pretty cool. I've had other dogs that have liked them, other dogs that haven't. But I don't have them wear them for any length of time, really. It's kind of, I put them on them, I take a few pictures, then I take them off.
Yeah,
because
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I might put them on for a class because Instructor Carol is so creative with her classes, and she almost always has us end each graduation that we're in with her with some sort of a theme. So I've bought several costumes for my dogs just for the graduation day of one of the classes that I've been in with Carol, so that, we can be in the spirit of the end of the class. And we've actually won some trophies for our combinations.
You have, yeah. And you display them proudly on your desk. Yes.
Isn't that funny?
Yes.
I do. They're like a little point of pride for me. So one of them, Ned has all sorts of nicknames. So he gets called Mr. Netiquette. He gets called Vegetable Nedley all the time. So one of our costumes was I dressed up as a pea and he was a carrot for Vegetable Nedley, Team Vegetable Nedley. And then we also have a little tuxedo costume that he wore for Team Improper Netiquette, which was supposed to be funny. What kind of costumes do you have for your dogs?
Well, we've had lots of different ones. We had some homemade ones and some ones I've bought.
Okay.
Some of the ones I've bought, he's been a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Oh, cute.
He has been a hot dog, of course. There's always the hot dog. He has a lion costume.
He looks embarrassed as you're saying this.
He does. And he also is one of those ones that looks like there's a jockey riding him. So it looks like he's a horse with a jockey riding him. And
that's even funnier when it's on a little dog.
Right. Yes. And a pumpkin, of course. He's got a pumpkin outfit. With a little pumpkin hat and everything. And you know what? I was in the States and I saw dog sombreros, and I wish I had bought him a sombrero. Now I'm feeling remorseful. I didn't pick up that sombrero for him.
Oh, that's really cute. I think that he's upset at the idea that he missed out on the sombrero now.
Right, yes.
I can see this expression in his face. All right. Well, it's lots of fun to dress up our dogs. Do make sure that, if your dog is a little bit uncertain about having coats and things like that put on them, do some conditioning if you're going to insist on the costume thing. Costumes are fun for us as humans, but they may not be as fun for your dog. So read your own dog in that situation. Sometimes a little less is more. You know, if you want to still be festive for Halloween and have some fun, maybe get something to decorate their collar with that's a little less intrusive.
Right, yes, or a Halloween bandana.
Yeah.
That's an easy one, yeah.
I love that. That's a great idea. Something that's not going to put them off or worry them, just so that we can have entertainment. But, you know, if your dog is happy to have the coats on and used to having clothes on, more power to you.
Right.
Enjoy the holiday.
Yes,
I'm sure that they will love those costumes. So.
Right, or even attaching, like get a little spider or something from the dollar store, and you know, attach a spider to their collar, or you know, somewhere on them. Or
then go and let people pet them.
Right, yeah. Or I've even seen people who have been creative with some special sorts of paints that that are safe to put on your dog, and you could like maybe stencil a spider or a ghost on the side of them.
That's a cute idea.
Do things like that. Yes.
Yeah. Make sure it's non-toxic stuff.
Right,
Make sure it's made for dogs. But I love that idea.
Right,
what an adorable idea. Alrighty, so if you do go with the costumes and it's something new for your dog, I would also suggest making sure that you supervise them very heavily when they're wearing them.
Right.
If they're not used to wearing clothing, they could very well try to tear at them. They could eat pieces. Like it can pose a danger.
Right.
For
Yes.
them
Or it could get wrapped around a leg.
Oh, that's
or
a good
wrapped
point
around their
too.
neck.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
it's close supervision, of course, as always.
Or they can overheat as well. If you put a
that's a good
costume
point,
on a heavily coated dog and it's warm out, they could definitely overheat.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And especially if there's something like plastic that doesn't breathe well, et cetera, that could be uncomfortable for the dog. So very good point. All right. So what are some of the things that you make sure that you are conscious of leading up to Halloween? So, right now it's early October right now. We're getting into the spirit of Halloween. As I'm walking down streets, I'm seeing lots of Halloween decorations.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you're very conscious of to make sure that you're aware of?
Well, we have some beautiful Halloween decorations on lawns. Like really, people have gone all out, and they're scary, and they can be scary for dogs as well.
Yes.
Especially things that have faces and are looking kind of grimacing and are dark.
Yeah.
So when I go on a walk during Halloween, I'll often bring some extra treats in my pocket.
Good idea.
So that I can help my dog out through these scary experiences.
Yeah.
So I remember Atari used to really take notice of different Halloween decorations, and you'd see her stop and she growl at things.
No doubt. Yeah.
Right. So be aware that your dog might suddenly spook as you walk past a house that has a graveyard scene or has a ghost hanging from the tree.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in a more densely populated area, I actually used to, on my drive home, I would do a quick drive around the block or the couple of blocks that were traditional for me to walk with my dog, so that I could check if there was new decorations before involving my dog at all. And especially since the advent of the motion activated stuff.
Right. Yes.
So a lot of the times those things, they're great fun for people, but they're meant to startle and they're meant to surprise, and they do just that. And if we're not aware of them and our dogs aren't aware of them, and suddenly we walk by someone's property and out pops a witch cackling or something, it's great fun for Halloween, but it might be really scary to the dog. So I like to make sure that I've sort of combed the neighborhood and I've done a quick check just to make sure that if new decorations are up, I'm aware of them.
Right.
And I might choose to cross the street at that point just so that I can keep my dog from having that little moment of panic.
Right. Yes. Yes. And if, my son is grown now, but when he was younger, I would get him, to practice wearing his costume around the dog too.
That.
So, kids love to wear their costume ahead of time. And so it's like, okay, let's put your costume on and we're going to, do some stuff around the dogs. That way the dogs are not shocked when they see you come out in a ghost outfit or come out in a floppy clown outfit. So that way we've done a little.
I'm afraid of that.
Yes,
I'm scared. I almost said I'm scared of that. I've reverted right back to childhood. Right. I'm too scared.
So, October 31st can be so busy.
Yes.
Already. You're trying to get supper. You're trying to get the kids ready. Maybe there's trick-or-treaters at the door already. And now suddenly the dog is in a sheer panic at the sight of your children dressed up in their outfits. So I'm going to get the dog. That's one thing I can do ahead of time.
Idea.
Get my dog used to it ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't have kids of your own, maybe you have friends with kids, or maybe there's kids on your block that you can say, hey, I'd love to see your Halloween costume. And, me and Fido would love to see your Halloween costume if you want to come over and show it off, and then be ready with a mitload of treats and lots of positive praise so that, and read the dog as well. It's not worth pushing it to the extreme. If the dog is terrified, then that's probably something that you want to protect the dog from and come along with slowly slowly over months and years versus just trying to force it for that Halloween night.
Exactly.
So
yes.
we'll talk more about Halloween night itself. But other things, is there anything else that springs to mind about things leading up to Halloween?
Well, I always buy candy ahead of time.
And you eat it all?
I do usually eat it all, but I'm going to make sure it's out of reach of the dogs. Yes. So wherever I hide it, it's going to be somewhere where the dogs aren't able to easily access.
Perfect. The other thing I always like to talk about is pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns and candles.
Yes.
So the pumpkin obviously isn't going to be that intriguing for the dog unless they think it's a ball of some sort. They might show interest. But once it's carved into a jack-o'-lantern and it's really stinky, it can often be an attractive nuisance for the dogs. And especially dangerous if there is a candle inside it. So always be aware of that, especially if you're going visiting with your dog and you've got your dog going to somebody else's house. They might not have thought about that. Maybe you don't have lit jack-o'-lanterns in your own house, but maybe you have them on the porch. Those are always things to be very aware of. Candles, of course, can be, very dangerous with dogs and tails, and especially inside of a food item that a scavenger might be interested in taking a bite out of.
Right.
So,
and even the top of the pumpkin, the stem, often the dogs would like to chew that stem too. So that's what my dogs have been interested in. When we've brought a jack-o'-lantern in, I see them, they turn their head sideways and grab at that stem. They want to chew it.
Chew toy.
Right, yeah. And it has that nice little give to it. And so that's something to watch out for, is they don't chew the stem of your pumpkin.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent advice. Alrighty. So all of the things that lead up to Halloween are things that we want to gently expose our dogs to as much as possible, and we want to supervise and make sure that our dogs are safe. So what are some of the skills that you like to have prepared for you so that when Halloween night actually arrives, you've got skills to rely on to help your dogs get through that?
Well, using a crate. That's one of the biggest skills. I want my dog to be comfortable in their crate or comfortable behind a baby gate.
I love that. And in what circumstances would you use that crate? For Halloween specifically?
Well, especially with young dogs. I don't want them anywhere near that front door. Yeah. There's enough going on at the front door with kids. I don't need my dog. Also, some people are very frightened of dogs.
Yes.
So I don't want to have my dog at the door. Even with older dogs, my preference is my dogs don't need to be enjoying Halloween along with me giving out candy. So on Halloween night, I always put my dogs behind a baby gate in another room or put them in their crates.
Perfect. And I think that's a perfect solution, especially if you have a really busy situation and there's going to be kids coming and going all night long and you're distracted by the cuteness of those costumes and the cuteness of the kids and all the action going on. All it takes is a couple of seconds of inattentiveness on your part and the dog might panic and slip out the door, or even if it's just interested in wandering the neighborhood. And of course, that's a scary night for a dog to be wandering around. If they're already sensitive to all of the different things going on, they could easily panic and run, and they cover ground quickly in those circumstances.
Right.
So I would completely agree with you 100%. Young dog, limited training, etc. Make sure that they are crated and away. If they have any fear issues at all, I would also make sure that there is background noise so that they're not hearing all the bells ringing and the kids yelling and whatnot. Make sure that they feel safe and secure. This might be the time where I take my crate down to the basement and I put on some radio music and I make sure that my dog feels completely safe and secure in that thing. If I have a dog that is a young dog, but they're brave and they want to see the action going on, the baby gate is going to be a phenomenal thing just to make sure there's no accidents, they're not slipping out the door, etc.
Right. Yes. And not everyone loves dogs.
Yeah.
Yes. And, you might think your dog looks absolutely adorable in their costume and you want people to see them. But when a child, opened the door and there's a child there, that child could have had a bad experience with a dog. They could be horribly allergic to dogs, and it could really frighten a child.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And, this is a night that it's just going to be a couple of hours. It's going to be over very shortly. So there's really no harm at all in not having the dog be part of this if there's any reason that you would go in that direction. I like to have a go to your bed command with my dogs. And I remember when So when Ned was really young, I spent a lot of time on his first Halloween night. I said to Kip, my partner at the time, I said, "You're handing out candy and I am training my dog." And
Right.
he was like, "Okay, I'm fine with that." And I
Yeah.
said, "Okay, good, because that's the way it's going to be." No, just kidding, of course.
Right.
But I spent that time, every single time a kid started to approach on the walk, I worked on my go to your bed. And Ned was, oh my goodness, how old was he at the time? So he was born in May. So June, July, August, September, October, November. He would have been about 6 months. So old enough to have some experience, but young enough still to lack the solid training that he would have, 6 or 7 months further down the road. So I made sure that every time I heard kids coming up the walk, and I would be watching out the front window, and like the first sign that I could hear them, I was working on my go to your bed with Ned. And I actually had a fail safe in place of a baby gate across where he could get to the door, so that if he did say, "There's somebody at the door though, I'm really excited," or "There's a kid that looks strange," or whatever the case may be,
Right.
I had a fail safe so he couldn't actually get to that point, couldn't actually get out the door, etc. So I wasn't really concerned that I wouldn't be able to call him back because he had a good enough response to name at that point. But the distractions were extreme. And I thought, I'm not ready to test this yet. I'm not ready to take the chance that he might slip out the door and some sort of chaos might ensue. So that fail-safe was just a nice way to be able to ensure that there was no way there was going to be an accident.
Right. Yes.
And I would work on his go to your bed. And as the kids were at the door, he was getting lots of reinforcement for holding position on the bed. And then, of course, as the kids left, reinforcement stopped.
Right.
So the value here, oh, hello, Honda. Honda's coming over to see me now. The value here is in remaining on your bed. Well, thanks. I get a high five and a little paw shake, rather than the value being going to investigate the people at the door. So that was a really nice first Halloween for him. And then we continued that as we went along. He's upstaging me. That's what's happening.
That's
here.
what, yeah.
I'm not nearly as cute as this little Ewok wandering around the studio. So, all right. So go to your bed. I worked a lot with him, as well as being very cautious with my candy and hiding it where, he couldn't have access to it, up high enough that he couldn't have access to it. I also worked on Leave It with some of the candy wrappers, with some of the candy boxes and things like that, so that when we got to the point where now there is candy and excitement, and, my niece and nephew might have come over and they might have had some of their candy and maybe dropped some wrappers on the ground. And I've already got a history at this point of working Leave It and reinforcing him for leaving those types of objects. So I thought that was a really, really good thing to work preemptively.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Yeah, coming into Halloween night. So was there anything else that jumps to mind for you?
Well, Halloween night, with all the noise and people coming to your door, it's stressful for your dog.
Yeah, it can be.
So,
absolutely.
We enjoy Halloween, although I do find it sometimes a little bit stressful at the beginning. Once it starts, I'm used to this. People are coming to my house and I can do this. I can give out all these candy. But imagine how your dog feels.
Yes.
There's a constant stream of people. It's very different, all these people coming. So your dog can be under quite a bit of stress.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind too. Your dog's probably not enjoying Halloween.
Yes.
They're probably finding it very stressful.
They very well could be. You're absolutely right. So read your dog and know your dog. And if you know your dog is a dog that is anything other than that super friendly, jovial dog that wants to love and know everybody and nothing really puts them off, it might not be the best environment for them to be out in. So Instructor Swanny, you are absolutely brilliant with that. And we always want to put the dog's welfare first and foremost.
Right.
So they don't need to be out for Halloween. If you want them to be out and they're the right type of dog to be out, that's one thing. But if they're not the right type of dog to be out, or you're going to be lax at all in your supervision and your management of it, then they are so much better off to be in the crate for those couple of hours. Right. Are there any other skills that you work on with them?
Well, I think, you want to make sure your come command is sharp in case something happens and they get out. You can call them. Perfect. You want to make sure your wait or your stay is sharp so that you can control them. Like, stay. Hold on, kids. I just gotta, get the dog and move them away. And jumping up on people. That's something I'm always working on. But the last thing I'd want them to do is to, fly out that door and knock over a child.
Yeah.
It's already, there's a jack-o'-lantern out there. Your porch might be crowded. I always worry about kids falling off the porch. So having a dog out there it just adds to the confusion. And I want to be,
yeah.
I want to be fully present for the kids and fully present at Halloween. And if I have to worry about my dog, I'm not enjoying the occasion. So
Yeah.
I find just putting them away, easiest thing to do.
It certainly would make this a shorter podcast too.
Right? Yes. Yes. Now, how
Just
about,
put them in their crate. They're good to go.
would you ever take Ned for a walk during Halloween
on Halloween night? No, I mean, I'm usually home to give out candy, so I probably wouldn't step out for that. But you do see people out with their kids,
Right,
with
with the
dogs
dog.
as well.
Right.
So, and that takes a special dog.
Yes.
So again, this is not a dog that has any sort of fear or skittish issues. Remember that it's already going to be dark out. There's going to be yelling, screaming kids,
Right,
running.
yes.
There's going to be all sorts of
Very
excitement.
visually different sights.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And unless you have that happy-go-lucky dog that's like, meh, this all just rolls off my back, it could be a situation where it's this constant influx of stimulation that is worrying for the
Right.
dog. And that, of course, is a nightmare for any dog that has any sort of worry issues. And it would be horrendous if then that became them reaching out to bite one of the screaming, running, happy children who's
Right.
running by, and it ends up in this awful situation. So
Right.
use really good judgment when it comes to that. That's a really great question, and I'm glad you asked it.
Yes. Well, and you want to. People sometimes they feel their dog will enjoy something, but in reality, their dog will not enjoy it.
Yeah.
So it's, put yourself in the dog's shoes and don't do things because you had your heart set on it.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a dog that is just like, I know my Sheltie Atari, Halloween would have been very frightening for her.
Absolutely.
And I would never want to do that to her. And
No.
as much as I would have loved to have walked her on Halloween night, maybe in a little costume to show her off to people because I think she's adorable, I know Atari wouldn't have loved that.
Yeah.
She would have been better off, snuggling in her crate, feeling very safe and secure
Absolutely.
than me taking her out.
Absolutely. Being a good leader for your dog means putting their emotional needs above your own emotional needs. So if their emotional needs are going to be present enough on Halloween that they shouldn't be out and they shouldn't be exposed to those things, it doesn't matter how much your heart wants to put them in a costume and parade them around the neighborhood. That is absolutely not the right choice. It is crucial that you think about their emotional needs and what is going to be best for them. And then maybe your next dog will be that dog that you can parade around the neighborhood for Halloween and have a blast with. But if there's any even inkling in your head that this might not be the thing that my dog loves, they are so much better off to not be part of it. And they get to be part of so many things that's really this one little thing. It'll be over in a blip and gone for another 364 days in most calendar years.
Yes.
So there you go.
I'm always surprised too at how well my dogs adapt to Halloween.
Yeah.
I find that the first couple of kids that come to the door, there's a little bit of barking. And then after that, they're like, oh, okay, this is normal. This is
Yeah.
the new normal. And suddenly the barking stops.
Yeah.
So
they're really good at rolling with the punches.
Right.
In
Yeah.
most cases.
Yeah. They're very flexible, very adaptable. And I find Halloween generally goes smoothly when I have them away. Now, I do have a Halloween story
okay.
from
let's
back
hear
in
it.
my wild and crazy 20s.
Which was only like 3 years ago.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I lived in a small town, and a lot of the people were still making homemade things to give out
Okay.
for Halloween. And back in those days, a small town, we all knew each other, and often they'd put the address it came from, and so you're like, oh, this is from the Smiths. Oh yeah, that's fine, eat it. And they were giving out homemade popcorn balls and brownies and all kinds of different little homemade items.
Okay.
And they brought us over a plate of the things that they were giving out. And so I put the plate on our coffee table.
Oh dear.
I never even thought. And that this is how fast things can happen.
Yeah.
And then I turned to talk to them. And I had a young dog, a Malinois at the time. And I guess that temptation was too much for them. I'm talking to the neighbors, and we're getting distracted by kids. And then lo and behold, I turn around. There is not one treat left on that plate.
Dear.
And I saw Flyer licking her lips, and it's like she just ate like 2 popcorn balls, like a whole bunch of little squares and candies. And
Oh my goodness. Was
I
she
was
sick?
No, I was very lucky. I was very, very
Oh my
lucky. She wasn't sick. I think she was very hyper for a while.
I bet.
And but
Sugar.
right, but that stuck with me. And I thought, oh, that could have been a vet visit. I was very, very lucky. So things can happen in a flash. So, lesson learned, now I am overly cautious with things like that.
Good call.
Overly cautious.
Absolutely.
Yes, but I turned my back for a second, and
you just never know what's going to happen.
You never know what your dog's going to do. Yeah. So.
Oh my goodness. Well,
so she had a delicious Halloween. And I was sad too, because I was looking forward to all those goodies. So it was like, oh.
Well, at least they were still there. They should have said, oh, you know what? We'll bring you both more. Oh my goodness. So a couple of other things that I do work on as a rule that I find are really helpful at Halloween. One is barrier training. So making sure that my dog knows never to cross a barrier without my permission.
Right.
I use this at all of my doors in all of my houses I only have one house, but any house that I have ever lived in.
Shannon has a house in Colorado, a house in England.
And I make sure that I do barrier training at the moat door as well.
Right, yes, yes.
We're good. Oh my goodness, no. Every door in my house, every house that I've ever lived in, as I've had dogs, I have taught every single one of them, you do not cross that threshold without permission.
Yes.
I do it at my gates as well, the backyard gates.
Right.
I have locks on my gates typically just to prevent any sort of accident. Like the kids next door toss their ball over into the yard and they come over and open the gate to come and get their ball and they don't know the dog's in there or the dog just slips out. I don't ever want things like that to happen. So I put fail safes in place, but I also teach my dogs, you do not cross this threshold without permission from me. So I do that leading up to life. So it's prepared usually for Halloween as well.
Right.
And that comes in really, really handy at Halloween. So the barriers, those are things that you can train as a safety net for day to day so that if, the kid leaves the door open or the wind blows the screen door open because it didn't quite latch shut, any situation that might arise, we can very quickly help ensure that our dogs do not end up out on the road or running away or whatever the case may be. So barrier training is always going to be a good thing. If I do put my dogs away in a crate, I also make sure that I give them a stuffed Kong. That's something that I didn't mention.
Yes.
So I give them something to occupy them.
They need a Halloween treat too.
Exactly.
Yes.
And something that I know they're going to be safe with. So usually in my house, that's a stuffed Kong that I will use. And then they have something to do to occupy themselves. They've got the noise in the background as far as the radio goes, or these days I would put on the McCann Dogs music channel. And just let them relax with that music channel. We've been seeing great success with it, with helping dogs to calm and settle and relax in their crates. So check that out on the McCann Dogs music channel if you are looking for something to help your dog relax.
And actually, if you get a chance to drop in the comments too, let us know if your dog has a costume, what you're dressing them up as.
Oh, cute.
That would
Good
be awesome.
idea.
Yeah, it's always awesome to hear what people are dressing their dogs up as.
Excellent idea.
One thing you could do too, if you really wanted to walk them around, maybe the night before Halloween.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, put on their costume and take them for a little walk.
Yeah.
In their costume the night before. That way there's not the chaos of the kids out there as well.
I love
and they can
that
get out
idea.
and, kind of get everyone in that festive mood. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We encourage our students to...
We do. We actually have the McCann Dogs Halloween costume contest going on right now. So drop into our Facebook page, McCann Dog Trainers, or our YouTube channel and look into the rules of that and get entered in the McCann Dogs Halloween costume contest.
Yes.
Which is going to be tons of fun. It's tons of fun every year. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about here in this segment is after Halloween, because the dangers don't end at 9 o'clock or whatever time trick-or-treating stops. That's actually when the dangers start to ramp up a little bit for certain circumstances. So according to the Pet Poison Helpline, they get an increase of calls by 12% the week of Halloween.
Right.
Which is a significant figure.
Right, yeah.
So that's dogs eating pumpkins with candles. That's dogs eating chocolate and candy and getting into things that they shouldn't.
Or eating costumes, chewing on costumes,
absolutely.
Eating decorations.
Yes.
Yeah, all that. I would be very careful of the gauze that looks like spider webs that people put up. I've even heard that birds get caught in that. So it's wild birds can get caught in that. So, it does look cool, but it might not be the friendliest thing to the wildlife. And if your dog or cat ever started to get that caught in them, that's
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yes.
good to know. I didn't know that. I'm glad you let us know that. Yeah, definitely. Anything that is like, take a critical look around your house after Halloween. And if there's anything that you think could be a danger, it doesn't usually take that much time to make that danger safe.
Right,
But if
yes.
you just think, you know what, my dog is 7 and has never gotten into anything, they're never going to get into any of this stuff, you could very well be wrong, because dogs are scavengers.
Right.
And if there's something new and enticing, they might want to check that thing out.
Right,
So
yes.
protect your candy for sure. The decorations, absolutely. Chocolate in particular, dark chocolate can be extremely toxic for dogs. A lot of the times there's an argument about chocolate because we've all had our dogs eat a little bit of chocolate and be fine.
Right.
And it's not an instant death for dogs. It is dependent on the size of the dog, the amount of theobromine in the chocolate.
The darker the chocolate.
Exactly. The dark chocolate has higher quantity of the toxic levels, the size of the dog. There's actually, if you go on, it might even be the Pet Poison Helpline's website. They have a chocolate toxicity calculator.
Yes.
But you can Google that, I'm sure.
Right.
And find
Yes.
it.
When I worked at the vet clinic, we had the chocolate calculator, and
The emergency vet clinic.
Yes. People would call us and say, my dogs ate chocolate, and we got the weight of their dog, how much they ate, and then we did this little calculation whether they should come in or not.
Oh, goodness.
But sometimes it's not the chocolate too. We had a person brought in a little Chihuahua, so very tiny, who had eaten a Ferrero Rocher.
Okay.
And the vet said, I'm not concerned about the chocolate because it's milk chocolate. I'm concerned about the tinfoil wrapper.
Oh, the
that's
dog
in
ate
your
the
dog.
wrapper
The dog
too.
ate the wrapper as well. So that's what the vet was concerned about,
that's a
was
good
the
point.
tinfoil in the dog. And Chihuahua's intestines are so tiny.
Yeah.
So I can't remember what happened, but that was the concern. The vet says it's that tinfoil wrapper. So remind your kids
Yes.
that, if you're sitting in your room eating Halloween candy, crumple up your wrappers, put them up high where the dog can't take them, eat them, and don't just toss them on the floor or in your room wastebasket. Bring them downstairs and put them in the proper garbage.
And if the kids are sneaking candy, make sure that they know not to stuff those wrappers in the couch cushions.
Right. Yes. Yes. And also remind your kids too to keep the candy up high. I know my son would have a big pillowcase full of candy.
Yes.
And he'd go in his room and he'd dump it all on the floor to sit and look at it. And then, of course,
and organize it and put the chocolate all in one pile and take inventory of all your candy. I remember doing that as a kid. It was like, oh, look at all my candy. And then, of course, once I had it inventoried and organized, it would go to my parents who would eat it all. No, I'm just kidding.
Right,
They
yes.
ate some of it, though.
I always share. Always share.
There's my father when I was young.
There's a parent tax to pay.
Oh, man.
But yeah,
and they
often-
deserve it.
Right,
Let's
yes.
face it. Parents deserve to eat some of that Halloween candy.
Right,
but I remember being very upset with my father one Halloween because he ate a lot of my candy.
But yeah, so remind children that,
Absolutely.
yeah, that the dogs, we don't want the dogs eating their candy. So to make sure their candy's in safe dog places, you might even maybe buy the kids a Rubbermaid container to put it all in and seal the lid. And, they have a secret vault now to keep their candy in.
Perfect. I love that. Yeah, make it a game for the kids and they'll be right on board. And then finally, I don't know if many houses give these out anymore, but know that raisins are very toxic for dogs.
Yes.
Very, very toxic. So grapes and raisins, and of course raisins are just dehydrated grapes. A lot of the times as a kid, I would get raisins in my Halloween candy.
Right,
So you get those little Sun-made raisin
red boxes. Yeah.
And if they're still doing that, if your candy includes any raisins, make sure it is not accessible for the dogs.
Right.
And do not refrain from giving your dogs.
Yes, and that's the type of candy I could see the kids going, I don't want raisins. Let's give it to
good
the dog.
point.
So
Yeah,
remind your
the dog will
kids
eat
too.
anything.
Yeah, remind your kids.
Alrighty, well, I do hope that everybody has a wonderful and safe Halloween, and I hope that we'll see your dogs in the McCann Dogs Halloween costume contest.
Yes.
So again, you can find out more about that by checking out our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. We also have hundreds of training videos on our YouTube channel to help you do amazing things with your four-legged family members. And on that note, I'm Instructor Shannon.
Happy Halloween, Instructor Swanny.
The McCann Dogs podcast is brought to you by McCann Professional Dog Trainers. We help dog owners to have a well-behaved, four-legged family member. Please give us a call at 905-659-1888 or visit us at mccanndogs.com. Happy training!